Okay, I'm with my good friend Paul Georgiou here, and we're going to cover one game with dual commentary for the exciting game between Vladimir Kramnik playing white against Magnus Carlsen in the Tal Memorial tournament, one of the strongest tournaments played all year so far. So Vladimir with white played c4, the English opening.
And well, it starts quietly, but it doesn't remain that way. We're going to see some very exciting random tactics in this game, with pieces flying all over the place, and a very unclear position arises. Some very interesting retrograde play from Carlsen, and well, we'll see.
So we have g3 here. I think Tony Carlsen recommends this move, g3 in English, to accelerate the bishop g2, and you. Instead of knight c4, knight f3, I don't think knight f3 is quite provocative for e4, though, isn't it?
It's possible. Also, black can just ignore it and play knight c6. But white is starting to avoid knight c3 early on in these lines now, because of bishop b4 and bishop takes c3 has become quite irritating, and a very frequent way of black playing these positions, with fairly good results as well.
Okay, so knight f6 after bishop g2. We see this curious move at h6. That's very interesting. It's unusual, isn't it? h6 is a nice, interesting waiting move to consider.
It's a rather odd move, has to be said.
But it does provide an interesting knight manoeuvre later, a knight tour.
It does, but it's difficult to believe that's actually the best move. But maybe he's waiting to see what white does. If knight c3, then bishop b4. If knight f3, then e4 maybe. And then, of course, knight g5 is prevented.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course, yes. So it adds more effect to e4 if knight g5 is prevented. Yeah, if the knight was on here, it couldn't go there. That's a good point. So knight c3, bishop b4, and Vladimir's not concerned about his pawns being doubled. I think on bishop c3, you could take with the d pawn. That'd be good. Keep control of d5.
I think white maybe can take with the b pawn.
B pawn,
which is similar to a line, but h6 is a bit of a waste of time in this variation. Maybe if you take with the b pawn, then black's normal play of c6 and d5 is actually a move behind. So maybe white can just play d4.
Right.
Because the bishop on g2 is defending the e pawn, and h6 is a waste of time.
Yes.
And maybe f4 can come.
Blimey, yes, that looks pretty dangerous. That's more ambitious, maybe b takes. Than d takes. I wonder, engine point of view, does it actually giving b takes for those technical reasons? Yes, it is slightly favouring b takes rather than d takes. Yeah, it's a good point. So c6 can be answered strongly with d4. Yes, putting pressure immediately on e5. Right. So in the game we have, after e4, so bishop b4, e4 was played. So knight c6. Black's got basically a d4 campaign going on here to try and strengthen control of the d4 square. Knight g2, and the bishop actually goes back. Tempo doesn't seem that important in this game, quite curiously.
Well, Black wants to make sure he keeps control of the d4 square, as it's his main asset in this position. White's a flexible position. He's likely to play d3 and f4, could expand with a3 and b4 as well. But the main problem is the weak light squares, the weak dark square in the centre. Yeah,
because of these pawns on e4 and c4. That's the sort of gap in the teeth here.
And bishop on c5 is very nice.
Yes, it is nice. So d3, and we've got, it's a Botvinnik system, isn't it now? It's sort of like Botvinnik system.
It is a Botvinnik system, yes.
Yeah. So
by a roundabout way.
Now knight h7. So is this going to be a new trend? This idea of this knight manoeuvre. Where is it going? Is it going like this? We're going to find out. Or is it going like this to get to d4? You can get to d4 via e6 two ways. We find out soon. a3, trying to sort of do something about this bishop.
The white's threatening to capture the bishop with b4, and then he can play knight d5 or a4 and take it.
Yes.
When he should be better.
Yeah, so a6 giving the bishop a7 square. So knight g5.
And of course, the good thing about going to g5 as opposed to f8 is that g5 gains a tempo because it's hitting the h3 pawn.
Yeah. So forcing king h2, which might not be ideal, But on the other hand, King H2 might be useful for f4s without the f pawn being pinned. So it's not too bad that f4 is facilitated. Now it's used. F4 to gain a bit of space.
But I'm thinking that really Carlsen's play is a bit artificial here, and I suspect White is a fair bit better.
Yeah.
He's wasted a move on bishop b4 to c5. He's arguably wasted a move on h6. He's moving two knights to control the same square, and only one knight can occupy the square. I would think White, despite everything, is doing well here.
I get the impression from Carlsen's games he's on a different positional level though to other GMs. Some of his positional moves are really profound, you know, really abstract, like art form. Well, that's the impression I get anyway.
Well, quite possibly, but I would still think the White is better here.
Yeah. So bishop d7, b4, bishop goes to a7, knight d5. Okay, so Magnus occupies now d4. So b5 is not how we could take on b5. You can't dislodge that knight that easily. So White strengthens his own knight on the d5 square with knight ec3. But maybe, you know, care has to be taken if this knight is later evicted. You know, it's running out of squares to retreat back to. Bishop e6. And we have.
It's another provocative move from Carlsen, because of course
f5 is with tempo, yeah.
f5 gains another tempo or two,
and it's used, yeah. So it's a lot of provocation. Would you say it's kind of hyper-modern, like an Alekhine defense philosophy of provoking White to create weaknesses?
Well, it's a bit Nimzovichian, but as is well known, Nimzovich did occasionally go a bit too far.
Yeah,
and this may be an example of this.
Yeah, but he's encouraged this f5, which normal attacking players would be, you know, licking their lips with f5, but Black hasn't committed to castling.
But the problem is, wherever the king goes, there's a ready-made attack. If it goes queenside, then b5 comes straight away.
Yeah.
On the king side, f6 comes.
Yeah, that's right, on both sides of the board. So in fact, rook b1 is sort of giving the impression even more strongly that b5 has strong support, but also there's another idea behind rook b1, not just the straightforward b5, but also the rook.
But he's also saying to Carlsen, well, what are you going to do in this position? He's actually got very few sensible moves.
Another undeveloping move, knight b8.
What can he play apart from knight b8? I mean, look at the position here. It's just a good move for Black.
It's difficult. He can't, you know, he'll get smashed if he castles here because of f6.
f6, exactly. So that's out of the question.
Talk about soft spots. That'll be end of game, 1-0. Oh dear.
So I think knight b8 is probably the best move, but you can't actually do very much else.
Yeah. So he's putting all his pieces back in the box. I think there was a little interview. I think he's got a blog on the internet, and he said about having to sort of undo quite a few moves. Yeah. Bit overly provocative. You say Nimzovichian, that's a good way of describing it. But the rook is not just supporting b5; it's supporting this next move, c5, indirectly.
Opening up the b file.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. And if he doesn't take the pawn, is he going to be in big trouble? That's the thing. If he plays c6, is there big trouble here?
We can maybe even take on d6. Doesn't look out of the question. Maybe it's not good enough. But
I don't know. Should we turn on our engine?
Okay, let's have a look at
assistant here. Apparently, just okay. Knight e3.
Just knight e3.
Queen g4 comes into as an idea. Knight e3 has got a threat now of knight c4. That could be unpleasant. So say takes. Say takes. Oh, it's difficult to know what's going on here, but apparently knight c4. It's a complex position indeed. So Magnus here did take on c5. After b takes, you know, He's reversing another piece back. He's putting all the pieces back in the box, setting up for the next game nicely. If they want to like use the ball for the next game.
Yeah, it does remind me of a game that Wilhelm Steinitz played against Lasker in the 1890s, where he put virtually all his pieces on the back row. But I think it was a right opus, but Steinitz lost that game. So basically his king was on the king side, but I don't think that's really a recommended policy. White still must be a lot better here.
Yeah. I suppose people that have studied Morphy games might be wondering what's going on here in terms of tempo and development. They'd be outraged by this, but the centre's kind of closed. Black's got a grip on the key central square with the d4 knight. If the proof is in the pudding, if black cannot be busted, then black cannot be busted. But apparently, technically, actually, black is getting close to getting crushed. If white had played, well, Kramnik plays a dangerous move anyway, queen h5. Apparently, queen g4 technically has got some interesting points to it, which I think you're not going to see the following analysis in other sources because it's not mentioned. Engine's not mentioning this move as an idea, g6, which actually doesn't really threaten gf. That would leave black's structure in a wreck. But just suppose g6 was played. There's startling resources here for white, like rook takes b7, for example, this line where black can be torn to bits. So that would be fairly unpleasant. Just shows how the dangers for black here with his king on e8. There's even, as Paul mentioned, a queen sack idea of fg might almost be playable.
I think it is actually playable. It's just not very good because rook takes b7 idea is just much better.
There's a counter queen sack. If king f8, is this better for white now? King f8.
Well, white's having fun. He just takes things.
Knight takes g4, and it starts to get dangerous for the black king here. In fact, slightly better for white now. Apparently, as you say, having fun. You know, you've got a great intuition for this kind of attack, don't you, Paul? So it sort of transcends calculation. So white's having fun there, yeah. Even
but I mean, black's still on the board though. It's the other line is much more convincing.
Yeah. So yeah, basically rook takes b7 would be splat here, but that's why people are actually saying the engine covers up this g6. It's sort of suggesting.
And rook takes b7, of course, doesn't just win a pawn. It actually hits the c7 pawn, and there's no way to defend it.
So king f8 is given as like the main move here against queen g4. So, for example, queen h5, f6. Now knight a4. White stands a little bit better, but it's not so clear. I mean, it doesn't look like an ideal thing to have a knight on a4 here. But white's doing well, obviously.
The thing is, black is actually quite solid. The queen side is quite solidly defended, and white's main breakthrough is with g5. That's quite hard to arrange with a rook on h8 and a bishop on a7.
Yeah.
The white king is kind of getting in the way.
That's a kind of prophylactic rook here, isn't it, against g5?
It is. White would like to get g5 in, but it's actually not so easy to achieve.
Yeah, that's a good point.
His own king could come under fire.
Yeah, the first time I tried to video annotate this game, my brain was getting fried actually because of all these retreating moves. It's like it's a strange game. I think you need to have the frame of mind to go through this game with a very open mind about the rules are being broken of development and putting pieces back. But black's solid and can, has that strong central grip throughout this. So it's I think quite an advanced game to view actually. So c6 was played, inviting knight b6,
which is actually a sacrifice because black can win material now with knight takes c5.
Yeah, so Magnus uses that knight takes c5.
And now if knight takes c5, bishop takes b6 and black has won a pawn.
Yeah.
And if knight takes a8, then knight takes a4. Yeah. And that knight is trapped on a8.
That's similar to what happened in the game actually, though. Knight takes... Whoops. Sorry, if knight takes a8, knight takes and say b5, and the knight's trapped.
Well, it's white's move.
Sorry. The knight is trapped here with white's play. But that's similar to the game, so we might as well look at the game continuation.
Yes.
So he just inserted f6 basically before taking on a8, which attacks e5. Now Magnus resourcefully defends e5, probably the only move.
Well, can black play g takes f6?
That's a good question. That also defends e5. Should we quickly check that out? Is there an obvious refutation?
Quite possibly.
Right,
I can't see it.
Oh, it takes on c8.
Oh, I see. He's just going to come in on b7.
Knight takes. Oh, right. Rook takes b7 on f7.
Right.
Forcing
okay.
an artificial defence.
Yeah, with good play.
And now a computer move again. This is absolutely crazy. Bishop g5. Because we've got these guys all eyeing f7 here. Yeah, it's easy to spot move. Bishop g5. Not. Bishop g5. And it's black crumbling here now, finally. Rook takes e7 check. Strange sack. Yes. And white's better. So, okay, so that's clearly.
Well, I'm not sure. Is the exchange down? I'm not sure how clear that is. Anyway.
I was joking, but so yeah, so it seems g takes f does solve the e5 problem, but g5 might actually be better. So bishop takes, and now we do have this thing coming up where white ends up with this knight on a8, which yeah, I think there's been some comments on Facebook if I wanted to lose my sanity to try and annotate this game. So maybe this is a Diet Coke time. I don't know. No, should we try and get through it? We'll try and get through it here.
Yeah.
It's so what is going on here? If white can rescue the knight, or white's trying to do something on the king side here and make black lose time swallowing that knight will be at a big cost on the king side.
Well, having removed the g pawn, white now has some more play on the king side.
He's got pawn mobility here after removal of g pawn. These guys are potentially dangerous in the variations now, and also of course e5 is immediately attacked, so it's defended actually bishop b8, and now the pawn mobility comes into play with g4. So there's an invitation, munch the knight at the cost of these pawns. Now here's a variation we prepared earlier, just an example variation. There's probably better moves along the way, but this is an example of how black can go badly wrong. Sorry, if black tries to munch the knight, then we get a demonstration of pawn mobility and a dangerous pawn coming to g7. Just an example variation where this is a decisive advantage because of this h7. So the pawns cannot be allowed to do this. So Magnus's resourcefulness makes sure he guards against the mobility of white's kingside potential avalanche here. He plays rook g8, so that's the move he chooses. He's not too keen to try and munch this knight immediately. Okay, so what do you think about this move, rook g8? It's logical against...
Oh, I think g5 and g6 is too strong a threat to be ignored. We haven't got time to take that knight on a8 at the moment.
Yeah. So he takes on h6, bishop e6, so he's actually almost given up hope of bishop b7. He's just keeping his minor pieces central.
But he can still round up the knight.
Yeah. How though? Exactly. He's going to move the bishop, and then that would attack.
Bishop d6, then queen takes a8, for example.
Yeah, that seems pretty quick. So white has to keep the frets up, really, doesn't he? Rook bc1.
Yes.
Keeps the frets up. So he's threatening now maybe bishop d4 and rook c6.
Bishop d4 takes his check.
Oh yes. So I wonder why bishop d6 wasn't played here to try and just round up the knight. Magnus plays another interesting move, king d7, which might have the idea of king c8 to b7, as you pointed out earlier when we quickly reviewed the game. But bishop d6, would you say that's unplayable here?
Bishop d6. I'm not sure what white.
Yeah, what does white have here? Well, it does take. He invites the check. E5.
Oh, E5 opening up his bishop on G2.
Right. So again, this C6 means the knight's not able to be munched now without losing the queen.
And the E file is open as well.
So knight C3 and now rook C, and white's clearly better.
Yeah, the E file is
There's
open.
a big threat of taking an F7.
Yeah.
So say queen D6, because if the bishop moves now, then big trouble. It's end of game. Takes, I guess. Yeah, that is.
Yeah, that's
and
fine.
an F7 check. So if queen D6,
Queen H5,
forcing bishop to go somewhere, and then we have a horrible knight C7 check. Ouch. So we get this tactic in. It's all a bit.
No, this is horrible. It's horrible.
Gone wrong. So there's ways of winning that knight, and there's ways to avoid winning that knight, clearly. So this next move is a good move then, maybe King D7.
I think so. Bishop D6 is obvious and wrong. Because
Yeah.
the lines get opened up too much.
Yeah. This E5 is a continual dynamic thing that white can do to sack the pawn with E5, even in the face of a discovered check. And he does it now,
Yes,
E5.
he does it anyway.
Yeah. But Magnus doesn't take on E5, he plays a seemingly safe move. He wants to just guard C6 and not have to deal with any other issues with the E file or anything. So, but now things get really sharp. Again, rook takes C3, exchange sack time. The queen is showing great versatility here. It's able to sort of come around like this now with this exchange sack. But Magnus plays check first, then he takes, now queen E3. So hitting E5 and A7. And both defended now with this next move by Magnus. So he plays queen B8. So white still has his knight stranded, it seems, on A8. What do you think about this position?
Well, the two bishops are starting to look quite nice now, aren't they?
Mm.
And the knight on A8 is useless, and material is actually equal.
And this pawn might be dangerous as well, of course.
And there's possible to pass pawn on C3. And white's kingside pawns haven't really got going.
Mm.
So it's starting to look good for black.
Yeah. Queen C5. Queen D6. Check. We have there, though, the queen is like coordinating, it seems, with the stranded knight. So queen takes A6. Now Magnus puts a seal on a more central bishop. Instead of on E5, he puts it to D4, which seems really good.
You're controlling lots of dark squares on
Yeah.
the queen side.
Yeah. And also, of course, potentially, if given time, something like queen G3, bishop E5, mating time for the white king. Putting a lock on D4, of course, controlling A7, controlling B6. Check. Check. Unfortunately now, they reach move 40. This is move 40, queen A5 check. And Magnus had time now because he's got the extra time bonus. He's reached the checkpoint. Extra time. Unfortunately, he didn't deeply consider, it seems, if he wanted to play on the game, move king B8, and he did write in his blog king B8. If he had seen the obvious move, I think he was worried in this position about knight B6, which seems very dangerous indeed. Knight B6
Threatening queen A8 check.
and queen A7,
Well, and taking the rook.
and taking the rook. That's the immediate threat, to take the rook. And if bishop takes B6, that's pretty nasty. Black would be made mincemeat out of, wouldn't he, if bishop? Because C6 would drop.
Well, I'm not sure it's mincemeat, but
Well, I think once the bishop drops on C6,
you don't just play bishop takes B6 really, but
let's have a quick check.
maybe possible.
Actually, maybe you're right, yeah. In fact, bishop C6, there might be bishop D5 check, that's winning. Bishop D5 for black. Nasty counter tactic.
Yeah.
But if he takes with the queen, it's probably still better for black. Or is it? No, that's about equal. Okay, so the big threat is alright, so maybe bishop B6 is just about,
Possibly.
but the strongest move by far is bishop C8 apparently, so it guards the rook indirectly by by blocking that first rank, the rook's not going to be hanging. So say check.
And now king c7, queen a7 check, king d8.
Oh, sorry. So if queen a7 check,
king d8, and white's just tied himself up.
Oh, no, actually bishop b7 is given. Oh, king d8.
Oh no, king d8 doesn't work.
Because of knight takes c8.
Yes. So that doesn't work at all.
And again,
no.
we've got the rook issue.
No.
Oh, hang on. We've got a check here, but then queen c6.
No, this is terrible.
Check. It's getting worse. Now this is something happening here. Queen a6. It's losing a lot of pawns.
Black's 3 pawns down.
Yeah.
This is completely lost.
Rook f5. End of game. Mincemeat. So Magnus did well to sort of not go there. Well, if he didn't see this defence, he has to see bishop c8 here. So check. And he'll be okay here, it seems. So if check, he plays king, not king d8. He has to see also then
Bishop b7.
If he doesn't see bishop b7 here, then I mean he's getting to be okay here.
And now that knight on b6 is in all sorts of trouble.
It's again stranded, and if it has to give itself up, blimey, what is this? Queen takes d5. Oh, of course, the bishop that is attacking that queen.
Not easy to see all this. So.
No, check, and bishop goes back, and black's better. So this is all very technical stuff actually. In this position, to do with bishop c8, it's very technical. It's kind of excusable that Magnus kind of, because that bishop's been lurking there all the time. So yeah, we can let Magnus off, I think, about not seeing bishop c8. It's not as simple as all that, because he didn't sort of avoid the repetition. I don't know what you think of this game. It's very complicated.
Well, I mean, I think maybe Kramnik's idea, moves with the knights around about move 21, 22 didn't actually work, and the knight on a8 was too much of a liability, and black was solid enough to actually be able to defend the squares.
In theory.
And round up the knight with good play.
In theory, yeah.
Therefore, maybe Kramnik's idea was actually incorrect.
Yeah. Should we just do a quick overview and summary then? So it seemed very interesting from those tempo fans out there. Might be outraged by this game of the retreating moves, the backward development, putting all the pieces back into their original squares. So first the knight, then the bishop, putting them all back, getting ready to set up the pieces for the next game, or then we have this episode of the stranded knight on a8, which is not so easy to munch, as demonstrated by these variations where this pawn avalanche would occur on the king side. So the pawn avalanche mobility is prevented, delaying plans to munch that knight. But again, things are sharpened up now with e5, and it becomes a case where the queen is coming to the rescue, it seems, of the knight for this final episode of the perpetual check, which could have been potentially avoided if Magnus had seen bishop c8 with the idea of this bishop b7 coming up against queen a7, and here he's better here in this position if he had seen all this. But he went for the repetition and told the arbiter, actually, I think Kramnik had left his seat, and he just pointed out to the arbiter his intention to repeat with king d8 after king here king d8 instead of king b8. It was after move 40. So even Magnus with his 2800 FIDE is not as good as Houdini, is it? We're just human after all.
He's not 2820 or something, 2825
yeah.
now, I believe. Number one.
Yeah, so Okay, and in fact, in this tournament, every player has only won one game so far. It's hard to win more than one game in this very elite tournament. So I hope you enjoyed that. Anything else you want to say about the game, Paul?
Well, it's a very interesting game, very interesting strategy from Carlsen. Very hard to believe that he was fine throughout, but he got away with it and he nearly won. It's quite an interesting game in terms of theory and ideas. Very Nimzovician, but taking it to an extreme, and White seemed to have a strong attack, but he never quite managed to break through.
Yeah. There's not many times we're going to cover draws. I usually like to cover wins, but it was such a fascinating draw there. Couldn't resist. There's lots of good bitsing at chessgames.com as well if you want to check it out there. That's game. Okay, comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.